We have two speakers today, both from Youth Villages of Oregon, which is a not-for-profit that works to build up families and to help kids in distress. And a fair amount of their work is done with foster kids. Thought it'd be appropriate to have them shortly before we have our event for foster kids coming up in December. First speaker is Dave DeRocher. He's a board member of Youth Villages of Oregon. He got interested in Youth Villages of Oregon. His daughter worked there, and based on what he saw her doing as a career, he decided to get involved. And like I said, he's on the board. In real life, he's a OSU graduate in electrical engineering. Worked with Eaton Company, an electrical contractor supplier for over 30 years. He's also on the scholarship foundation at Huskyville, that little school up in Seattle. So with that, please welcome Dave DeRocher, and he will later introduce his colleague, Alice Galloway.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to be here. We've actually had these presentations at a number of different Rotary clubs. I'm learning quite a bit about Rotary, and it's very exciting to see, there's a lot of, I think what Youth Villages does and what Rotary does is, we're both really trying to serve our local communities. And I was excited. We were talking about your Christmas event with foster kids. So I think you'll find that that is a nice fit with what we're doing here at Youth Villages. So as Jeff mentioned, my first touch point with Youth Villages was when our daughter Katie graduated from Portland State University with a degree in counseling in 2014, and her first job was at Youth Villages, and so she kind of got a first-hand look at what's going on down there, and we also did too. So we kind of really got a pretty good feel for what's happening with disadvantaged youth in our community. And so I retired a couple years ago. I thought, this is something I really want to get involved in. So I'm leaning into it, and Alice is actually on the board with me. She's our vice chair, so in a couple of years she'll be the grand poobah, and I think that's right. And so Alice is going to finish up here when we get towards the end. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation, just about 10 slides, and then we've got a video that fingers crossed to signal that it might work. It's loading. Hopefully. Okay, I tried to come up with a clever and catchy title, so I used Crossing the Chasm, and so I'll explain that here in a little bit, and kind of give you an understanding of why we picked that.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. Is this organization called anything else prior to this?
Yeah. And matter of fact, on my next slide, and we were talking about Mary's Woods at lunch, and so right off of Highway 43, there was Christie Care. So that maybe does everybody remember that? So Christie Care was a Oregon-based youth-supportive organization for many years, and Christie Care in 2011, Youth Villages came in and said, hey, we want to partner and come together. And so Youth Villages is headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee, so involved in and actually have active programs across 25 different states in the U.S. So Oregon was kind of an addition to the Youth Villages family, but some of the original Christie Care family and people are still there. Christie Care had a residential unit, so they actually had youth living on campus at the facility right there and right off of Highway 43. So Youth Villages is not supporting that right now. So most of what we do today is we have specialists that support youth that are below age 18, that are with foster families or disadvantaged youth, and then also we're going to talk about a program for youth after they age out of foster care. So Youth Villages, again, Memphis, Tennessee, headquarters 1987, so been around for a while. So even though we have common evidence-based service models, and I'll talk about what types of service models we have at youth villages for kids in Oregon, we actually have autonomy at the state level. So Youth Villages of Oregon is the Oregon piece of the puzzle for youth villages, and we actually do everything in terms of service contracts with the Department of Human Services in the state of Oregon, and all the fundraising that happens here stays here. So it's really an Oregon-based initiative. Crossing the Chasm. So I actually stole this this title from a book that I read many years ago. There was an author, Jeffrey Moore, in 1991, wrote this book called Crossing the Chasm. And this is the graphic that's on the cover of the book. I don't know if any of you ever read it. It was interesting. It was really about introducing disruptive technology. And so his whole message was, you know, you might come up with something new and innovative, and introduce it to the marketplace, and you'll have some early adopters and some people that buy in and say, okay, this isn't quite cooked, but we're going to go ahead and support it. But what you really want to do is get to the masses, you know, the rest of the market. And between there and there is a chasm. And the chasm is this dark space where if you can't figure out how to get from, you know, leap across the chasm, then, you know, then you'll fail. And I think cell phones is a pretty good example of that. You know, if you think about companies like Nokia and Ericsson, you know, they sort of vanished and went by the wayside. And now, you know, now there's some other companies in there like Apple and Samsung. So at any rate, I use this title because I wanted to kind of focus on what we see at youth villages as a much more important chasm. And that chasm is, you know, the chasm for a youth when they just turn 18, they get out of high school, they've got their whole life ahead of them. And now they have a lot of choices, a lot of decisions that they have to make. You know, maybe this young girl just got out of high school and she has to decide, am I going to go to college? If I do that, how do I pay for it? Am I going to get a job? Where do I live? How do I pay for it? So there's a lot of scary stuff that happens. I'm sure if you remember when you were turning 18. But now if you think about this young lady and think maybe she's been, maybe dad's a drug addict, you know, and maybe mom's in jail. And, you know, maybe she's been in 2 or 3 different foster families and she just turned 18. And in the state of Oregon, after you turn 18, you're no longer eligible to be supported by the foster program. So this chasm gets really wide and really deep for some of the youth in our community. So I'm going to talk today just a little bit about a program that really is a youth villages program that we support across all of the 25 different states for youth villages called LifeSet. And so youth villages has been working over the past 8 or 10 years, really focusing on this specific issue. How do we support youth after they age out of foster care? And the needs of youth when they do that change a lot. And again, I mentioned a few of them. You know, things like housing and career and employment. You know, if I'm going to go to college, how do you fill out an application? You know, so some of those types of things are youth villages. We actually have specialists that meet on a routine basis with youth in Oregon and help them through this transition from youth into adulthood. So a couple of things going on at the Oregon DHS, and Youth Villages actually has kind of 2 different models. We have a program that's called the Intercept program that supports youth that are from 0 to age 18. So youth that are supported by foster care. And I put a couple of graphs up here. I was introduced by Jeff as an engineer, so sorry. You know, engineers love graphs. but I kind of wanted to show you that for youth that are supported, that are in between 0 and 18, we actually show the kind of the total expense to support youth and the state funding. And this is sort of a backward-looking view from 2018 through 2022. And you can see that it's pretty well state funded. So state of Oregon DHS, I think has a pretty good initiative. They do a good job, and You know, they do a good job supporting youth and in Oregon, in the ones that are, you know, they're in foster care. One of the things we've learned from youth villages is that we have a really family-focused initiative. So most of the youth that we see in Oregon in support of the Intercept program are with family members. They're not with foster family members. So we've learned over time that the youth staying with their family members is important. You can see that the cost of this, there's a thing called average daily census on the graph on the right, and then the monthly cost. And you can see that the cost per child monthly cost is fairly high. So this is a pretty extensive and rigorous program. Youth villages recognized throughout the country. In support of this, we actually just were recognized by the Family First Act of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So we were recognized as a well-supported program. So we've been working the last several years trying to kind of help teach Oregon DHS and the state of Oregon, hey, how are we going to support youth from after they age out of foster care? And we talked to them about the life set and initiatives and the types of things that we have available. And we've learned from supporting this program in other states. And one of the things we've learned is the intensity, the cost per child for servicing them after they age out is actually a lot lower. So it's a fairly cost-efficient initiative. And also obviously the human cost of ignoring this step in terms of things that you have to deal with potential issues with prison or you know, any kind of problems with the law. Those types of things are catastrophic. So really it's like the final yard before you get to the touchdown. You need to stay with the child until they can transition into adulthood. Actually, the state of Oregon does have a program that they've developed over the last few years called the Independent Living Program, ILP. So Youth Villages actually has contracts for supporting youth pre-18 and also after 18 with the ILP program. But this just kind of compares the differences between the ILP, Oregon ILP program and the Youth Villages Life Set program. A couple of things I just kind of point your attention to is the whole notion of the specialist to youth ratio, 1:8 versus 1:20, and then also weekly visitation, so weekly sessions versus monthly sessions. So it's a little higher touch. The specialist is out there. I've actually done ride-alongs with some of these specialists. We sat down with a young man in North Portland, and he said, okay, you know, you're out of high school now, you got to go get a job. Here's Home Depot, you know, here's their application, fill it out. You don't have a car, you have to ride your bike, so find a place to work that you can ride your bike to. So kind of blocking and tackling types of things that you really need to do to support these youth. And it's really important to stick with them at this age. LifeSet and the support from the state of Oregon for youth that age out is a little different. This actually is a little more of a forward-looking look, so you can see I'm plotting out from fiscal 2021 all the way into 2024. Last year, well, in 2021, actually, the state funding for youth aging out of foster care was 0. Okay, so there's not a lot of support. Again, I mentioned we're trying to kind of coach and teach the state of Oregon that this is important, and things are coming along. They're starting to step up some of the funding for LifeSet and also the Independent Living program, the ILP program. And so our biggest initiative really is to try to focus on fundraising, to try to fill the financial gap so that we don't have an issue. We can support more kids with this LifeSet program after they age out. Yeah.
What are the center set of numbers, the 10, 20, 40, 30, 60? What do those numbers?
Well, those are the Yes, two-piece charted graph here. So those are the youth served. So average daily census, yeah. So you can see we're really, we're, I don't know, actually Alice has got some numbers she'll share with you. I think we're up a little bit higher than some of these graphs are, but yeah, so that's kind of the average daily census or youth served on an average per day with the LifeSet program. Yeah. So we're serving more youth. The cost per youth is going down, and again, the monthly cost per youth, you know, a little over $1,000. So a pretty efficient program, and we think necessary program. So, and then going back to the fact that we're part of the National Youth Villages Organization. LifeSet's been around in Oregon just for a few years, but LifeSet's been around with youth villages for over a dozen years. So we have some proven outcomes and that we can use as evidence-based outcomes. And there's some little text down here you probably can't read, but basically a study of over 7,000 youth over a 12-month period for 3 years. And these are the outcomes. So yes.
It says living successfully, and I can't read the type below that, but what is the definition of living successfully for this measure?
Well, it says with family or independently. So they may be, and one of the questions we get is, well, how long, if it starts at 18, when does it stop, you know? So, and that's the other thing is the ILP program kind of runs out of gas at, I don't know what that age, I think it's maybe 22, 21 or 22. And we have youth we're serving in LifeSet up to age 24. So what we really do is stick with them until they're living successfully, either independently or that they're able to support themselves. In school, completed high school, employed 91%. No involvement with the law. That's a big one. That's a big one, you know. And so 95%. So the outcomes are really good here. So the chasm that this young girl here is crossing is a pretty narrow bridge, but again, with the support from Youth Villages services, you know, there's an opportunity to move towards being a successful and fully functioning adult. So we actually have a big audacious goal, fundraising initiative of $2 million. And Alice is going to give you a little update on where we stand there. We're doing pretty good, I think, but we're really trying to, again, serve. And unlike some of the contracts I didn't really mention, but in the Intercept and the LifeSet, the Intercept program and the ILP program, there's contracts with the state. So Youth Villages has contracts with the Greater Portland area, Clackamas, Washington counties, Marion, and also over in the Bend area. So those are kind of statewide contracts. The LifeSet program really is supported with any youth in the state. So one of the things we're trying to do is reach out to some of the school districts and see if we can find kids that need that extra help, you know, and make sure that, you know, we don't leave anybody behind. So again, I think we've got evidence-based processes to help Oregon youth move towards adulthood, and this is kind of our master mission, and what kind of makes us get up in the morning and try to do a little more to help youth. And again, it's a nice fit with what I think a lot of the Rotary clubs are doing as in terms of supporting youth in the community. So we've got one final slide here that talks about some of the call to action initiatives, and Alice, I'll let you take it here and kind of go through some of these. And we've got I've got about a 5-minute video if we have time to watch it and if it works.
Okay, just a little bit about me so you know why I got involved in villages in the first place. Most of my career outside of my career in Los Angeles when I moved to Oregon has been in child welfare, either within state government or nonprofit. When Governor Goldschmidt left office, he took me with him and we started the Oregon Children's Foundation. which was the smart book and reading program. So I launched that, and it's still going in many, many schools across Oregon today. Also did something called Wrap Around Oregon, which this project is very much connected to. It was for kids, and it's still going on, who are involved in multiple service systems in our state. And we have many of those kids, thousands of those kids who are involved in maybe child welfare, juvenile justice, mental health, special education. They're complex needs kids. So Youth Villages does a wraparound approach with LifeSet and Intercept and all of its programs, which I really like because it's effective. It really works. It's evidence-based. Prior to Youth Villages, Christie School or Christie Care was residential care, which was typical in those days to put children, difficult, complex kids into residential care. Now they're trying to serve these kids outside of that because it wasn't very effective. So that's why I'm on the board of Youth Villages. I really believe in what they're doing. This population of older teens or young adults they've had a very tough go. Most of them have been in multiple foster homes. Most of them have no contact with birth family. And you think our kids needed a lot of help when they were that age. These kids need even more help. So just to drop them after they turn age 18 is really not only a disservice, it's a travesty. And we're only creating young adults who are going to go on and be bigger problems for ourselves. So LifeSet is something that I think we all should think about in terms of supporting LifeSet. Okay, so there are 3 different ways you can support. As Dave said, we have a capacity building grant right now. It's a 4-year, relatively modest, $2 million, which is really in the scheme of things, not that much, but a $2 million 4-year grant. We are 2 years ahead of it, and we only have $100,000 more to raise. And what will that do? That will take us from 30 teenagers or young adults that we're serving in LifeSet now to 50. Which is a big jump. I mean, it's going to serve 50 young adults, keeping them hopefully out of homelessness and incarceration and unemployment and all those bad things we don't want to see for them. So that's our capacity building grant. Then we have 2 kind of, I think, are really fun projects. One's called Backpack Heroes. And for $100, you can sponsor a backpack for a teenager in high school or middle school. And then Holiday Heroes, which kind of fits in with what you do at holiday time for foster kids. It's taking the wish list of one young person and purchasing those items for that person. So that's $150 per teenager, or any amount of money that you want to donate. All of that can be accessed in the Youth Villages website. So you can, if you're interested, go on Youth Villages website, Oregon, and you can see those. All the dollars here in Oregon stay in Oregon, by the way, because I had that question as I'm donating as a board member. I wanted to make certain my money stayed in Oregon, and it does. I don't want it going to Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you very much. So that's guaranteed to stay here. If I can answer any other questions, I'll be happy to. Or Dave will.
So I saw a report this morning, actually, very much like this in Oklahoma City, where they were building, or they had built 300 square foot homes for these kids that have aged out, and they can stay there up to 2 years. They pay $100 rent, but they, again, help them find employment, get them self-sufficient so that they can move on to other needs once they matured through that. So is there any thought about, as your program moves on, that you would have housing like that for these children?
Great idea.
City of Portland has it. There's some, City of Portland has some low cost housing, and we have some of the youth that, and the Youth Villages is kind of connected with a lot of the communities that we serve to help these youth kind of try to find. This one ride along I mentioned to you, this young man was up in North Portland and he was staying in an apartment at a subsidized rate. I don't think it was $100. That's pretty cheap. But at any rate, there are some services like that, and we and youth villages kind of try to connect those services to the youth.
I should let them know though about the Oklahoma program. Do you know
Right.
the name of it?
It was on, the Today, or on Good Morning America.
Okay.
this morning.
Great.
So I'm kind of ignorant about when a kid turns 18 in a foster home, the money stops coming in for them. Do they typically leave the foster home or stay with the foster home? And your services, I'm having a hard time picturing. They're having to commute to your campus so many times a week or something. Is that an issue, just how they get there?
No, it depends on the individual needs of the young adult. They can stay in foster care until they're 22 in Oregon, 18. So Youth Villages works with young adults, 18 to 22, and then beyond if they're still with them. They will be in their foster home. Youth Villages counselor will meet with them once a week.
And we go to them.
Between 6 to 9 months. The counselor goes to that youth, can meet the youth anywhere, at McDonald's, at the foster home, at college campus, or wherever. But they stay with that youth once a week, meeting for 6 to 9 months, working on a plan of care that the youth actually develops, him or herself. They tell us what they need to be successful. It's usually housing, because they know they're going to be leaving the foster home and moving on. So they do need a place to live. Education, a lot of them want to go to college, or some type of job, how to balance a checkbook, those kinds of things. Also mental health. A lot of these kids need ongoing mental health counseling. So they make certain they get connected to that.
After 18, does that 10,000 per child continue on for
6 to
22?
9 months is the normal time frame for youth villages to be part of a youth's life in this particular program. 6 to 9 months after they're independent. But again, they may still be in foster care until they're 22. It depends on what their needs are. Some of them want to get out and go to college, and some of them want to move home to some type of home, a relative.
Yes. Yes. You're waving your hand.
So you mentioned kids that may want to go on with their education, go on to college or trade school. What is the obligation from the state of Oregon, and what support do these kids actually get? Because you might want to go to school, but how do they fund that?
Can you repeat the
There was
question?
a law that
Can you
was
repeat the
passed.
question?
There was a law that was
But
passed.
you just asked, the question was, what's the obligation of the state of Oregon for educating youth after they graduate out of high school?
And what resources are available either through the state of Oregon or through you to help with kids?
I believe there's some tuition forgiveness from the state of Oregon for youth in foster care. There was a law that was passed not that long ago, but I don't know if it's still underway, but I think it is.
Melissa?
Other than that, foster kids oftentimes get some kind of scholarship or support for school.
Okay. On the screen.
Hi, my name's Melissa, and I am a co-chair with the other person who just asked the question, Sandy, for our foster kids committee. And so in hearing this, we're focused more on the kids before they reach 18, but do you have some recommendations of ways that we can be setting them up for success through our events?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I think I mentioned earlier the outreach with schools. And so I think your event here would be a nice one to, obviously, we have a population of youth that are in the Intercept program that are in the Portland Metro. So, you know, that would be I think that'd be a good place to try to look, see if we can find an adjacent space there and try to see if we could, I don't know how you go find the youth that are in foster care for your event. DHS?
We work with DHS and they provide a list of, this year we're hosting 450 kids. And so it would be awesome to be able to have some ideas that would help promote some of these transitions to make them successful right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think there's a good adjacent space there we should pursue. Would we pursue that with you?
Maybe, yeah.
Or, okay, all right, we'll do that and follow up. That's a good point. Good idea.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Can you please clarify the numbers again? Did you say that you were working with 13?
30,
30?
30.
So that's your average of through their lifetime working with the program, and how long is that?
6 to 9 months.
Only about 6 to 9 months, and then.
And so it's 30, and we're trying, we want to go to 50, but it's sort of a moving window, you know, so some come in and some finish.
And this wraps into a little bit about what you asked. So are you currently working with like DHS where they know that you are a service and they're already asking that kids for next steps and often right. And then so Melissa and other co-chairs get asked about how I can potentially work with our events. So what are the numbers? Are you seeing that you'll need more than 50? What's the demographics of?
Well, there are hundreds of teenagers aging out of foster care in Oregon every year. The independent living program with the state of Oregon serves all of them to some degree, not as intense as youth villages or not for the period of time that we would. So, I mean, we could serve more, but it's heavy staffing for this program. That's where the money goes. It goes to the staffing part of it. And they're well-trained counselors. So they handle 8 to 10 youth at any one time. So as you can see, the more youth you have, the more counselors you have to hire, and that's where your budget goes.
Richard?
Thank you, folks, for an excellent offering today. I would like to propose the addition of a third leg to mental and physical health component, and that is social skills, social health. The ability to develop and nurture social relationships and get along with others is vital to life success. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's part of the counseling and the plan of care for these young people.
So I think one more question. Karen?
No, I forgot. I was going to ask what it takes to be a worker there, and you answered that, so.
How do you qualify these people, that these 30 or 50 people that you're going to take into your program? How do you qualify who gets into the program, and if you're the 51st person you don't? Do you assess that, or does someone else assess that for you?
Right. Well, we work with Department of Human Services, the Child Welfare Division, and we know many of these youth already because they're part of youth villages and in other programs. But we, look at a number of their issues. Some of them who already have a way into college or a family to go to have less need. So we look at the most need. And
some of the youth, the ILP program will work. It's enough, so and we do work with DHS to try to kind of make sure we get the right services with the right youth.
And how do the kids know that this is even a possibility that they could get into this program?
That's an excellent question.
Well, their workers know, their caseworkers all know about what the resources are in the community. Child welfare caseworkers are very good at their job. They know in every community what's out there, and they tap into it in terms of the needs of their individual kids. So it would be the caseworker.
We don't have to do video.
Oh, okay.
Just one more question. You know, my background with juvenile court is I talked with Alice before the meeting. Do you have any interface with Oregon Youth Authority? Kids going into residential treatment centers or some of the other reform schools such as McLaren and Hillcrest? Because at age 17, when I worked in juvenile court, at age 17, that was the most vulnerable age for men and or boys and girls to commit crimes. And, you know, the need is so great, but you can't do everybody. Do you have any that
Well, I'm sure some of these kids
have been there?
have either been there or are on track of going there. So that's one of the things in their plan of care. We would work with them to stay out of Oregon Youth Authority.
Jen?
Is there any room for volunteers? I mean, we certainly aren't trained mental health professionals, but you know, if you have business people, it's a place for us to provide, you know, a seminar on balancing checkbooks that one of our bankers could do, or you know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think one of the things that was on the call to action slide, we have an ambassador board. So one of the things, like I noticed you have a scholarship program. So some of these youth that get scholarships from Rotaries, you know, they'll come out of their school with a public servant sort of a headset, and they get into industry so the ambassador board is sort of a group of young professionals that are kind of the board that works with the master board, and they do a lot of the things for fundraising and promotion and that kind of thing. So there's an opportunity there for people that are, you know, maybe some of the kids, some of the.
But I really like your idea because we just had somebody do a cooking class, which was really popular. But I love that idea, just a one-off doing a training on balancing your checkbook, money management.
There was a bankruptcy judge in New Jersey who saw people coming into bankruptcy who had no understanding of finances. And it spread out here, and a number of us got trained and then went to high schools and made a presentation on the cost of credit. And most kids, they buy a car, oh, it's $80 a month. The concept that they're paying $30,000 for a $5,000 car. You go through the form with them, and you know.
Yeah.
I have another suggestion, and that is to have somebody teach them how to interview for jobs.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful way to volunteer. Yeah, use your own background and expertise to help other people.
So Bob, do you want to cue up the video?
We will try. We trust you. So this is the Mariah Hunt. We just had a fall celebration event just last month, and this Mariah Hunt actually is a young lady that from North Carolina that aged out and got into this LifeSet program. So she's very impressive.
I'm originally from Baltimore, the inner city of Baltimore, where during the time period that I was born in, the biggest thing was drugs. And so my mom and my dad, he was a drug dealer, and my mom was eventually got on drugs. Between birth and 17 years, anytime I tried to advocate for myself, I was shunned. So it was like, well, Mariah, you just have to be quiet. I learned the word burden at the age of 4 or 5. So I never knew what it meant, but I knew it had a negative connotation. And then when Troubled Child was introduced to me, it was said in the same manner as burden. So I'm like, oh, I've been a burden my entire life. Whew. I struggled with that because I never wanted to be a burden. I would do whatever I could do to make people feel like I was worthy of love. And it broke my spirit. My dad was granted custody of us and we moved to North Carolina. So we stayed there with his living girlfriend and him. And there was a lot of domestic violence. And with the domestic violence came verbal and mental abuse. to myself, I was really broken inside, and I knew that I had battled with some type of mental illness. I wanted to die, and I thought this cycle was never going to end. Eventually went into the hospital for like a month, and I told them if I leave and go back to my family, it's gonna be a repeated cycle. So I begged them to put me in foster care or some other situation, even if it was temporarily. I needed to live somewhere else. They decided, okay, we're gonna put her in foster care. That experience I'm grateful for it. It was a lot of lessons learned, but I still wasn't getting the services that I felt like I truly needed in order to be successful until I came in contact with youth villages. During those first couple of meetings I had with them, I'm like, this is the first time someone is actually listening to my words and putting those into action. They were like, do you want to go to college? What is it that you want to do? And I'm like, dang, I haven't even thought about that yet. Yeah, let's look into colleges. And that's what made me say, you know what, I'm gonna give them a chance. I had Emily as my YV Life Set Specialist, and Emily is one of the strongest people I know because I was kind of difficult to deal with. I would call her at 1 o'clock in the morning in a frenzy or whatever it was, and she was always calm and listening. They helped me with school, like helped me through everything that I had to do in school. And because I didn't have parental involvement, they kind of were like the hole in the parenting that I didn't have. I couldn't call my dad and say, Dad, I aced this test, but I knew if I called Emily, she would be stoked and she would probably have a surprise for me the next time she saw me. Like it was like something that I always yearned for. It was genuine. I felt loved. I felt like I had a voice. So I love Emily. As for today, I am a lead teacher for the 2.5-year-old classroom at a 5-star preschool, and I'm forever indebted to YV, and they know that. I tell them all the time, if it's anything that I can do to spread the word, I'm spreading the word of YV. The best way to describe my experience with youth villages, if you ever have been to like an antique shop or a thrift store, they always have like the items that's the shiniest to the front of the store. And how I view youth villages is they walk past the stuff that's shiny, they walk past the clothes that's not damaged, and they go back to the back of the store where there are some things that need a little bit more work, maybe a little bit more shine to it. It might be broken, and they take that home, and that's what they work on. They put the pieces together. They just put a light in you, and they turn that light on, and you're able to shine through your brokenness. So it's like they choose the damaged things because they can see what potential it has. They see potential. And that's what happened to me. YV saw the potential, and the rest is history.
Thank you very much.